the Holy Cross, the Crux of Infinity, and the 7-year arc of revelation from 2017 to 2024. An essay on humanity's journey to salvation from Atlantis to New Jerusalem by Edward Lee Neal. That people may know that you, whose name is Jehovah, you alone are the Most High over all the earth. Psalm 83:18. Prologue. The heavens speak. In every age the heavens speak, not in words, but in signs, the paths of eclipses, the tremors of the earth, the arrival of messengers from beyond our star, all declare that creation itself is conscious, and that we live in a story greater than our own. This is that story. The Holy Cross is not merely a symbol carved in stone or creed. It is a living architecture of reality, the place where the vertical and horizontal, the eternal and the temporal, the divine and the human intersect. Its shadow stretches across time itself, through the fall of empires, the enslavement of souls, and the awakening of those who remember who they are. The cross, drawn across the United States by the total eclipses of 2017 and 2024, forms more than geometry. It is a celestial summons. Between those two shadows, the cosmos delivered 3 interstellar witnesses, Oumuamua, Borisov, and 3-Eye Atlas, each a marker of divine timing. Around them the world trembled. Wars ignited, economies faltered, and the earth convulsed with storm and fire. The heavens and the nations moved as one body under judgment and renewal. This essay traces that convergence. The ecliptic cross, the mysterious wow signal that echoed through space in 1977, the centuries of human exploitation and energetic warfare, and the modern acceleration of time itself. Together these form one revelation, that we are living in the moment when the cross of heaven touches the heart of earth. This is the story of the cross as resurrection and transfiguration, the pattern of renewal written into the stars and carved upon the soul of humanity. For the creation is waiting with eager expectation for the revealing of the sons of God. Romans 8:19. Chapter 1. The Crux of Infinity. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. There is a point where all timelines meet, where the eternal brushes against the temporal and history folds into eternity. This is the crux, the still point at the heart of the spiral, the cross. It is not merely a symbol of suffering, but the cosmic geometry of transformation. The intersection where time, chronos, is pierced by eternity, kairos, and death gives birth to life. The cross transcends religion. It is the archetype of the universe itself, the pattern of energy intersecting and exchanging, the point of balance between the vertical flow of spirit and the horizontal expansion of matter. The ancients inscribed it in stone, the mystics perceived it in vision, and the prophets embodied it in life. The cross is the axis mundi, the tree of life, the fulcrum of resurrection. At its heart, the cross teaches that creation endures through sacred tension, not conflict but polarity reconciled through love. The upward beam signifies aspiration, humanity reaching toward the divine. The downward beam signifies incarnation, the divine descending into matter. Their meeting, the still point, is transfiguration. Let your kingdom come. Let your will take place as in heaven, also upon the earth. Matthew chapter 6, verse 10. The crux of infinity, where time collapses. Imagine the infinity symbol. Its center is the cross in motion, the eternal now, where past and future meet in the living present. At that center, time collapses, and eternity breathes through the moment. The cross and the infinity loop are mirrors of the same truth. that what seems linear is cyclical, and what seems finite is forever unfolding. In physics, this still point echoes in the quantum field, the place where matter flickers between existence and potential, where every particle is both wave and being. In spiritual terms, it is the Christ field, the consciousness that unites opposites and redeems duality. At this crux, all timelines converge: creation, fall, redemption, renewal, the heartbeat of the universe repeating. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Revelation chapter 22, verse 13. The eclipse geometry, the shadow and the light. The cross is not confined to symbol. It is written in the sky. When the paths of the total solar eclipses intersect, they trace an X upon the earth, the living geometry of Revelation. In 2017 and 2024, 2 total solar eclipses crossed over the United States, forming a luminous cross of shadow and light. Many saw a coincidence. The prophets saw a sign. As the moon veiled the sun, light itself was momentarily interrupted, as if the heavens rehearsed the passion once more. From the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. Matthew 27:45. The eclipse is the cross in the sky, the union of heaven and earth, light and shadow, spirit and flesh. It is not a curse, but a summons to awaken, to reconcile, to remember. The energetic equation, reconciliation as power. When opposites meet, energy is born. The friction at the intersection between good and evil, love and fear, heaven and earth, creates the very fire of transfiguration. This is the alchemy of resurrection. Just as the atom releases power through fusion, so too the soul releases light through reconciliation. Energy equals experience times reconciliation. Every trial endured, every polarity embraced becomes fuel for transformation. The cross, then, is not a symbol of death, but of voltage, the point where suffering becomes power and pain becomes purpose. I die daily. 1 Corinthians 15:31. The cross within. The cross is not only cosmic, it is intimate. Every human life contains its own intersection, the meeting of personal desire and divine will, of spirit and body, of past and possibility. The moment we choose love over fear, forgiveness over vengeance, we stand upon our own Calvary, and in that surrender we rise. To carry one's cross is not to suffer aimlessly, but to align with the geometry of redemption. The cross within is the map back to wholeness. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Luke 9:23. The cross and the cosmic pulse. The cross is not fixed in time. It pulses through the ages. Its geometry governs galaxies, atoms, and hearts alike. Every supernova, every heartbeat, every act of forgiveness reverberates with its pattern. The universe itself breathes through this rhythm: expansion and contraction, death and resurrection, exile and return. The ancient prophets called it the covenant. The mystics call it the logos. Physicists might call it the unified field. All are describing the same truth, the eternal pattern by which the divine sustains creation. Cross is the fulcrum of that pattern, the hinge of history and the heartbeat of eternity. To encounter the cross is to be invited into participation with the cosmos. It is the call to move beyond victimhood into co-creation, to see that even collapse is creative, and even endings are beginnings. The cross teaches that redemption is not escape from the world, but transfiguration within it. As the 2 great eclipses cross and the heavens mark time upon the earth, a new age begins. One not defined by domination, but by integration. Humanity stands once more at the crux of infinity, called to remember that resurrection is not a past event, but a present choice. For if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall be also in the likeness of his resurrection. Romans 6:5. The cross, cosmic, personal, eternal, is the reminder that all things intersect in love. And love, eternal and self-giving, is the only force capable of holding infinity together. Chapter 2. Atlantis and the prototype of hubris. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God. Revelation 16:19. Before Babylon, before Egypt, before the rise of Rome, there was another empire, radiant in its wisdom, unmatched in its power. Its name was Atlantis. To many it is myth, but to those who listen between the lines of history, it is memory. Atlantis was humanity's first great experiment in divine imitation, a civilization born of sacred wisdom and drowned in self-worship. The Atlanteans understood the laws of creation, geometry, vibration, energy, the mechanics by which spirit moves through matter. But they forgot the law that governs all others, humility. The rise of the first light. According to ancient memory, Atlantis emerged in an age when heaven and earth still touched. Humanity had not yet severed its awareness of God. Science and spirituality were one language. The people of that age built with resonance rather than stone. They harnessed the forces of light and sound to shape their world. Theirs was an Eden of intellect, radiant, efficient, and unified. But within their brilliance, a seed of pride began to germinate. The Atlanteans discovered that they could channel divine power, and soon they sought to possess it. The sacred became technology. Wisdom became weaponry. Where the heart once guided the hand, now ambition did. In this turning lay the fall. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. Isaiah 14:13. The sin of hubris. Hubris, the desire to be as gods without God, was the undoing of Atlantis. In seeking mastery over nature rather than harmony with it, they broke the equilibrium upon which creation rests. The energy grids they manipulated began to fracture. Their instruments, meant to heal, began to consume. The land quaked, the waters rose, and the once golden continent vanished beneath the sea. The flood remembered in every culture is not merely a natural disaster. It is the archetype of divine correction, the resetting of the moral compass of a planet. When the collective will divorces itself from divine order, nature intervenes. Water becomes judgment and baptism, both. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. The echo of Atlantis. Though the continent sank, its echo endured. In the myths of Greece, the mysteries of Egypt, and the wisdom traditions that scattered across the world, the Atlantean memory survives in our architecture, our science, and even our ambition to transcend limitation. It whispers still in our technology and the towers of our cities, the same towers that, like Babel, reach for heaven without understanding it. Every civilization since has carried with it the double inheritance of Atlantis, the gift of genius and the curse of arrogance. For every invention that uplifts, another enslaves. For every progress in knowledge, a loss of reverence follows. We have gained the power once sought by gods, but forgotten the grace to wield it well. There is a generation that are pure in their own eyes, and yet is not washed from their filthiness. Proverbs 30:12. The return of the pattern. The Atlantean fall was not a single event, but a pattern, one that repeats whenever humanity mistakes power for purpose. It is the prototype of hubris woven into the fabric of history itself, The same force that built pyramids builds skyscrapers. The same drive that split the atom now splits nations. The same thirst for control that drowned a continent now threatens a planet. The earth remembers. Its oceans still carry the frequency of that ancient rebellion, and its tectonic plates still bear witness to the sins of imbalance. When the collective consciousness of a species reaches critical arrogance, the elements rise to remind it who sustains whom. Upon the deluge Jehovah has seated himself, and Jehovah sits as king to time indefinite. Psalm 29:10. The prophets who remembered. Throughout time, certain souls have remembered Atlantis, not as nostalgia, but as warning. Plato recorded the tale through Egyptian priests. Mystics and prophets echoed it through allegory. They understood that the story was never about geography, but morality, not about where Atlantis was, but what Atlantis became. These voices appear in every era, reminding humanity that knowledge without wisdom is the surest path to ruin. As Christ later said, "What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul?" Mark 8:36. The parallels of the present. Our world now mirrors the Atlantean condition. We have harnessed the atom, coded intelligence, and pierced the fabric of space itself. We speak in data, build in energy, and command the invisible. Yet beneath this brilliance, the same ancient disease festers, the illusion of sovereignty without surrender. We believe we can engineer life, rewrite genetics, and conquer death. Yet we cannot forgive, love, or rest. Our towers are satellites and our temples are screens. And just as before, the earth groans beneath the strain. The floods rise, the fires multiply, the storms speak. The earth is utterly broken down. The earth is clean dissolved. The earth is moved exceedingly. Isaiah 24:12. The cross as the antidote. Against the arrogance of Atlantis stands the cross, not as a symbol of religion, but as geometry of redemption. Where Atlantis rose by pride, the cross redeems through humility. The upward beam, aspiration; the downward beam, surrender; the horizontal beam, reconciliation. In this pattern, the sickness of hubris finds its cure. Atlantis sought transcendence without transformation, the power of gods without the heart of God. The cross reverses that error. Power through surrender, life through death, divinity through love. For whosoever exalteth himself shall be abased, and he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Luke 14:11. The bridge to renewal. To remember Atlantis is to recognize the mirror of our own time. The fall of that world was not the end, but the seed of this one. Each collapse is a prelude to rebirth, and just as the flood gave way to covenant, so too will the waters of our age yield to revelation. The lost city beneath the sea is not lost at all. It is buried within our collective consciousness, waiting to be redeemed. For in every heart where pride is surrendered to purpose, Atlantis rises again, not as empire, but as Eden restored. And he that sat upon the throne said, "Behold, I make all things new." Revelation 21:5. Chapter 3. The Cycles of Covenant and Collapse. What has happened to be, it had already been, and what is to come to be has already proved to be. And the true God himself keeps seeking that which is pursued. Ecclesiastes 3:15. History is not a straight line. It moves in spirals, rising, falling, and returning to its beginning, like breath. Every age of humanity follows the same pulse: revelation, rebellion, reckoning, renewal. From Atlantis to ancient Israel, from Rome to our own digital empire, this pattern repeats. Not because God delights in destruction, but because he has built mechanisms into divine order to restore itself when creation forgets his covenant. The law of the cycle. The universe itself moves in covenant, Energy given, energy returned. Action and consequence in perfect balance. When humanity aligns with this law, harmony prevails. When it breaks it, collapse becomes a correction. The cross, the eternal symbol of intersection, is written across every age. Its horizontal beam represents the span of human endeavor, society, economy, empire, desire. Its vertical beam represents divine alignment, spirit, conscience, purpose, truth. When the horizontal grows without reverence for the vertical, the structure cannot hold. It tilts, trembles, and eventually falls. For they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. Hosea 8:7. Israel, the covenant remembered and forgotten. Jehovah chose Israel not for privilege, but for demonstration. A living parable of the covenant between humanity and him. Each time the people aligned with divine law, they flourished beyond measure. And each time they turned toward idolatry, material, political, or spiritual, collapse followed. The Assyrian conquest of the northern kingdom in 722 BCE marked the first great scattering, a warning that covenant cannot coexist with corruption. The Babylonian exile in 586 BCE was judgment and mercy entwined. Judgment for disobedience, mercy and the opportunity to remember. The Roman destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE fulfilled Christ's lament, "Not one stone shall be left upon another," in Matthew 24:2. Each collapse was both punishment and purification, a pruning to prepare new growth. Each restoration came not through power, but through repentance. The pattern was clear. Every civilization that forgets its soul becomes a footnote in history. In case you should leave Jehovah and you do serve foreign gods, he also will certainly turn back and do you injury and exterminate you after he has done you good. Joshua 24:20. Rome, the empire and the eclipse. Rome inherited the world after Greece, but repeated the same moral trajectory. From republic to tyranny, from discipline to decadence, the pattern held. Rome mastered law, engineering, and art, but lost sight of justice, humility, and mercy. Bread and circuses became the new liturgy. Conquest became Rome's communion. The Caesars declared themselves divine, but divinity cannot be claimed by decree. It must be lived through virtue. When that virtue decayed, so did the empire's soul. Plagues, famine, economic ruin, and foreign invasions were not random. They were the earth's and heaven's mirror, the external reflection of internal decay. And yet, within Rome's collapse, a new covenant emerged, the cross of Christ, raised in the heart of the empire that crucified him. Light always returns to the ruins. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. Daniel 2:44. The modern empire, the fourth fall. Now the pattern approaches its culmination. Our generation stands as both heir and judge of every civilization that came before. We are the new Atlantis, the new Rome, the global empire built not of stone, but of data, electricity, and invisible currents. The temples of this world glow in pixels. The gods of this world are algorithms. The world no longer sacrifices bulls on altars. We sacrifice attention, empathy, and time. The prophets of this age are scientists, poets, and ordinary souls who feel the pulse of the earth. They warn us, as ancient prophets warned Israel and Rome, that imbalance invites correction, that what we call climate change is not merely environmental, but spiritual climate change. The planet mirrors the condition of the soul. The quakes and the fires outside are echoes of the ones within. The land will be completely stripped of everything, and it will be plundered completely. For Jehovah himself has spoken this word. The land mourns, it is wasting away. The productive land withers, it is fading away. The prominent people of the land wither. The land has been polluted by its inhabitants, for they have bypassed the laws, changed the regulation, and broken the lasting covenant. That is why the curse devours the land, and those inhabiting it are held guilty. That is why the inhabitants of the land have dwindled, and very few men are left. Isaiah 24:3-6. We live in a time of technological omnipotence and moral amnesia. We can see galaxies billions of light years away, but cannot look each other in the eye. We can map the human genome, but cannot heal the human heart. We can connect the world in seconds, yet remain divided in spirit. The covenant has been broken again, not by nations this time, but by all of us, collectively, as a species. Cycle as mercy. Though it seems bleak, the cycle is not cruelty, it is mercy in disguise. The same force that allows civilizations to rise is the one that lets them fall so that renewal can begin. Destruction is simply creation resetting itself. The flood that buried Atlantis, the exile that humbled Israel, the collapse that consumed Rome, these are all acts of divine equilibrium. They are not the wrath of a tyrant God, but the feedback of a living universe returning to harmony. Even now, as the modern world trembles beneath its own excess, there is hope. Judgment and mercy are not separate events. They are two sides of the same coin of transformation. Every tremor, every unraveling is a doorway to remembrance. For those whom Jehovah loves, he disciplines. In fact, he scourges everyone whom he receives as a son. Hebrews 12:6. The covenant renewed, the new pattern emerging. The covenant has never been abolished. It evolves. From the patriarchs to the prophets, from Jesus Christ to the present awakening, its essence remains. Love Jehovah, love one another, honor creation. Every other law unfolds from these three. In this age, the renewal of covenant will not come through empires or institutions, but through consciousness. It begins in the individual heart, when a single soul remembers its connection to the infinite. From there, families, communities, and nations can realign. The new covenant is not written on tablets or scrolls, but within the heart itself. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares Jehovah. I will put my law within them, and in their heart I will write it, and I will become their God, and they will become my people. Jeremiah 31:33. The pattern complete, the cross of the ages. Atlantis, Israel, Rome, and the modern world, 4 iterations of the same eternal cycle. Each rose in revelation, fell in rebellion, and met redemption through realignment. Each served as one arm of a great cross drawn through time itself. At the intersection of those arms, the crux of infinity, stands the moment we now inhabit. Humanity once again faces the choice. Will we cling to the idols of power, profit, and pride, or will we surrender to the pattern and rise renewed? See, I have set before you this day life and good, and death and evil. Therefore, choose life. Deuteronomy 30:15-19. We stand where every age has stood, at the edge of collapse or transfiguration. The cross hangs not over a single hill in Judea, but across the globe, shimmering in solar flares and tectonic tremors, waiting for the soul of humanity to answer. History's pattern will repeat, unless this generation remembers the covenant and breaks the cycle of forgetfulness once and for all. Chapter 4, Jesus, the prophets, and the reformers of renewal. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. John 1:5. Throughout every age of decline and disarray, God raises voices, individuals who carry within themselves the frequency of renewal. These prophets, reformers, and mystics emerge not from the centers of power, but from the margins where the world's noise cannot drown the divine whisper. They are sent not to condemn the world, but to awaken it from its trance. The pattern of prophetic emergence. Each time humanity reaches a threshold of imbalance, when greed outweighs grace and when institutions forget their origin, the divine field births a countercurrent, a soul or movement carrying memory of the eternal covenant. These are the Christ bearers of every era, living reminders that light does not vanish, it reincarnates. From Enoch to Elijah, from Jeremiah to John the Baptist, each arose in an hour of forgetting, and each stood as both mirror and bridge, exposing the sickness of the age while holding open the portal to its healing. The Christ event, the axis of time. In the figure of Jesus Christ, this pattern reached its eternal apex. His life did not merely mark history, it divided it. The axis of time itself pivoted around his incarnation, crucifixion, and resurrection. The vertical and horizontal planes of the cross converged in him, spirit and flesh, heaven and earth, reconciling the divided universe within one embodied truth. Jesus was not the beginning of prophecy, nor its end, but its revelation in full. The Word made flesh. John 1:14. Every prophet before him foreshadowed his light. Every reformer after him echoes his voice. In him the infinite became intimate. The eternal stepped into chronology to redeem it. The Franciscan renewal. 12 centuries after the resurrection, another light flickered into the shadow of empire. Born in 1181, Francis of Assisi lived in an age where the church had grown powerful but estranged from its soul. Crusades raged, wealth accumulated, and the spirit of humility was fading beneath the gold of institutions. Then came Francis, the mirror of Christ for a new millennium. His simplicity exposed the excess of his time. His tenderness toward creation restored what had been forgotten. That the gospel was never a call to rule, but to serve. The birds, the lepers, the outcasts, all became sacraments through which divine love re-entered the human field. Francis' life was an act of cosmic remembrance. He renewed not theology, but relationship, between humanity and the earth, between church and spirit, between man and creator. "Repair my house," the voice had told him, and he did, not with stone, but with compassion. The Leo line, the gatekeepers of reform. Centuries later, the lineage of reform continued through men like Pope Leo the Great in the 5th century, and in more recent prophetic vision, the archetype of Pope Leo XIV, a prophetic archetype of renewal within the modern church yet to come. The Leos are the lion hearts of faith, guardians of truth in ages of confusion. If Francis was the mirror, Leo was the voice. If Francis was the mirror, Leo was the voice, defending the eternal structure of light against the encroachment of shadow. Their combined legacy forms the two lungs of renewal, compassion and conviction. The prophecy of a future Leo, a reformer bearing both the fire of Christ and the gentleness of Francis, speaks to a church transformed from within, awakening once more to the living gospel rather than its bureaucracy. This archetype signifies that even the most rigid systems can be reborn when humility outweighs pride. In every century since, the prophetic current has not ceased, it has changed language. William Blake, whose art unveiled the unseen. Martin Luther King Jr., who carried a trumpet of justice through the wilderness of racism. Mother Teresa, who saw Christ in the dying poor, and countless unknown mystics, healers, and poets, each became instruments of divine equilibrium. Even now, in the digital age, new prophets rise, not robed in linen, but clothed in code, song, and activism. They stand in the streets, online, in laboratories and sanctuaries alike, wherever truth demands incarnation. They are the forerunners of integration, preparing the way for reconciliation of science and spirit. Prophets of the present hour. As the 7-year arc between 2017 and 2024 unfolds, the prophetic lineage converges once again. Modern seers and awakeners, many anonymous, scattered across nations, sense that the same spirit which spoke through Elijah and Francis speaks again through the collective conscience of humanity. They do not preach a new religion, but a higher awareness, one that unites ecology, economy, and empathy into a single ethic, stewardship. They call not for belief, but for remembrance. For as Christ said, the kingdom of God is within you. Luke 17:21. The bridge to the heavens, the coming of the signs. In this time, the heavens themselves bear witness. The eclipses, the interstellar visitors, the magnetic storms, all correspond to the prophetic current of renewal. For every messenger on earth, there is a messenger in the sky, as above, so below. The appearance of 3i Atlas, the third interstellar object, symbolizes not invasion, but invitation. It marks the reconciliation of heaven and earth, spirit and matter, much as the prophets reconcile human history with divine memory. The function of the prophet. He or she sees the divine rhythm behind chaos, hears the symphony beneath the storm. Their voice is not meant to control the future, but to awaken the present, to call humanity back into resonance with the frequency of Jehovah. Each age needs prophets not to build new temples, but to clear the debris from forgotten ones. Their task is not to change God's will, but to restore humanity's hearing of it. The prophetic continuum. From Jesus to Francis, from Leo to the prophets of now, the same current flows. One unbroken river of remembrance. Souls who carry light into shadow, who choose incarnation over escape. Their message is consistent across the ages. Repent, for the kingdom is at hand. But repentance here means not shame, but return. A turning of the mind toward the eternal pattern. The bridge to the next chapter. The age we inhabit is the culmination of all these voices, the prophetic symphony reaching its crescendo. The same pulse that spoke through Jesus, sang through Francis, and thundered through reformers now hums beneath the fabric of the cosmos. It prepares humanity for the next revelation, the meeting of the cross and the cosmos, the arrival of 3i Atlas, the reconciliation of the human story with the stars. For the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. Revelation 19:10. Chapter 5. The 7-year arc of Revelation, 2017 to 2024. And I will show wonders in the heavens above and signs on the earth beneath, blood and fire and vapor of smoke. Time, like a river, carries the story of humanity in waves, calm, then rapid, then breaking. But every so often, the current bends sharply, creating what the mystics call a kairos window, a divine intersection where eternity brushes against history. From 2017 to 2024, humanity has been living within such a window, a 7-year arc of revelation, written simultaneously in the heavens and in human events. This arc, bracketed by 2 solar eclipses and illuminated by 3 interstellar visitors, is not random astronomy. It is cosmic liturgy, a sermon written in starlight, declaring to every generation that the covenant of creation is being re-examined and the balance of heaven and earth restored. The first eclipse, the unveiling, 2017. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood, Joel 2:31. On August 21, 2017, a shadow crossed the United States from Oregon to South Carolina, the first total solar eclipse to span the continent in a century. It was called the Great American Eclipse, and for millions it was a spectacle. Yet for those with eyes to see, it was a summons, the first line drawn upon the continent in the shape of a cross. Only weeks later, on October 19, 2017, an unbound traveler entered our solar system. 1I Oumuamua, the first confirmed interstellar object ever observed. Its arrival, silent, swift, and inexplicable, coincided almost precisely with the eclipse's energetic shadow leaving the Earth. Oumuamua's name in Hawaiian means scout, or messenger from afar. It was as if the heavens themselves were sending their herald across the newly darkened sky. This was the beginning of the 7-year sermon. The middle years, the witness, 2019-2020. Every word shall be established by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. 2 Corinthians 13:1. 2 years after Oumuamua's passage, a second interstellar object appeared, 2I Borisov, discovered on August 30, 2019. Unlike the first, Borisov blazed openly, a comet with a tail of fire. If Oumuamua was the messenger, Borisov was the witness. That same year, the world began to tremble with unseen contagion. By early 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic had circled the globe, shuttering borders and silencing economies. For the first time in generations, the planet paused. The stillness of 2020 was the midpoint of the arc, the pause before the second eclipse. The second eclipse, the cross completed, 2024. From the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour, Matthew 27:45. On April 8, 2024, the second great eclipse swept from Mexico through the American Midwest into Canada, the mirror image of the first. The two paths intersected near Carbondale, Illinois, forming a perfect cross upon the map of the United States, the X of destiny drawn upon the heart of a nation and an era. The arrival of Three-Eye Atlas, the Reconciler, 2025. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, Revelation 14:6. In July 2025, the heavens once again sent a messenger, Three-Eye Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar visitor. Discovered on July 1st, 2025, Three-Eye Atlas represents completion, the reconciler. Oumuamua was the herald, Borisov was the witness, Atlas is the bridge, the cosmic embodiment of the cross in motion. The sun and the earth respond. Yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven, Hebrews 12:26. In the months surrounding the discovery of Three-Eye Atlas, the sun's activity will surge, storms will intensify, earthquakes will cluster. The physical world will mirror the moral turbulence of its inhabitants. But this is not destruction. It is awakening. The earth, remembering itself, is sacred. The call within the ark. For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of God. 1 Peter 4:17. Each person alive during this ark has been chosen to participate in this renewal. Judgment has already begun, not of destruction, but of choice. To stand in this ark is to stand beneath the cross itself, where time and eternity converge. The edge of revelation. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. Revelation 2:7. The prophetic timeline culminates in choice. If Atlantis was pride, Israel was covenant, and Rome was empire, then this era is integration, the reconciliation of science and spirit, humanity and creation. The seventh day. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Revelation 3:20. The 7-year arc closes as the Sabbath of history, a moment of stillness before the next creation. The cross spans the sky. The messengers have come. The door is open. Now the choice belongs to us. Chapter 6. The Holy Cross is resurrection and transfiguration. So that just as the Christ was raised up from the dead through the glory of the Father, we also should walk in newness of life. Romans 6:4. There is a point in all things where light and shadow, heaven and earth, spirit and matter converge. It is the crux, the still point between beginnings and endings, the portal through which death yields to life. The cross, that ancient emblem of suffering and triumph, is more than wood or symbol. It is the axis of existence, the meeting of mortal time with divine eternity. Upon it, time itself fractures. Chronos gives way to Kairos, and the eternal breathes through the temporal. That instant of perfect intersection, the perishable becomes imperishable, and the finite is caught up in the infinite. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown in corruption. It is raised in incorruption. 1 Corinthians 15:42-44. The cross thus stands as the axis mundi, the vertical beam of spirit descending into flesh, meeting the horizontal beam of humanity stretched between opposites, bound yet yearning for reconciliation. Or if we have been united in him in a death like his, we shall certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his. Romans 6:5. The cross is therefore both a wound and a doorway. It beams forth the geometry of transformation, where pain becomes passage, loss becomes initiation, and death becomes dawn. It is the spiritual equation through which the old self dies, so that the divine self might awaken. The crux of infinity, where t equals time. Cross finds its mirror in the infinity symbol, two mirrored loops of reality bound by a single center. The midpoint is the crux, where time, t, is transfigured. There, past and future collapse into the eternal present, and Kairos, sacred time, pierces the veil of Chronos, measurable time. Jesus Christ, the same yesterday and today and forever. Hebrews 13:8. At the cross, eternity breaks through duration. Resurrection ceases to be a historical event and becomes a living condition. The cross becomes not a monument of death, but the engine of transfiguration, a living geometry through which all things are made new. Behold, I make all things new. Revelation 21:5. Eclipse geometry, the living cross of heaven. In the heavens, the cross is written again. The paths of total solar eclipses, the lines where moon and sun embrace, sweep across the earth like divine inscriptions, tracing the balance of light and shadow. When the moon veils the sun, the world enters a temporary crucifixion of light. Day becomes night, sight becomes awe, and time holds its breath. In August 2017 and April 2024, these paths of totality formed a cross over the heart of America, intersecting near Carbondale, Illinois, the so-called crossroads of the eclipses. From northwest to southeast, the first shadow moved. From southwest to northeast, the second, together forming the celestial cruciform, heaven's own axis upon the continent. From the sixth hour there was darkness all over the land. Matthew 27:45. The eclipse is not mere astronomy. It is liturgy written in light, the living reenactment of Calvary's mystery, the moment when light consented to enter shadow, so that shadow might be redeemed. Reconciliation generates power. Every intersection, celestial, cultural, or personal, is charged with sacred tension. Where opposites meet, energy is born. Where love meets suffering, resurrection becomes possible. This is the law of the cross. Energy equals experience times reconciliation. The more consciously one reconciles opposites, self and other, light and darkness, spirit and flesh, the greater the luminous force released. The cross thus becomes the spiritual reactor of the cosmos, where polarity resolves into unity. I die daily, 1 Corinthians 15:31. The three interstellar visitors framed by the eclipses. Amid these celestial crossings came three wanderers, messengers from the deep void between stars, each entering our solar system within the 7-year span framed by the eclipses. One-Eye Oumuamua, the Herald, discovered on October 19, 2017, scarcely 2 months after the first eclipse. Its name means scout or messenger from afar. It came silently, tumbling like an ember from another sun, the first confirmed interstellar visitor ever known. It was as if the universe whispered, "Behold, something approaches." Two-Eye Borisov, the Witness, discovered August 30th, 2019, by Gennady Borisov, the first interstellar comet, brilliant, visible, bearing a glowing tail of ice and dust. If Oumuamua was the voice crying in the wilderness, Borisov was the lamp bearing witness to the light. Three-Eye Atlas, the Reconciler, discovered July 1st, 2025, by the Atlas survey in Chile and confirmed interstellar the next day. As the second eclipse completed the celestial cross, this third interstellar messenger entered the stage, sealing the pattern. The Reconciler unites the two that came before, the Herald and the Witness, just as resurrection unites crucifixion and glory. And now the question stands before the soul of humanity. What does it all mean? Is it coincidence, or the whisper of a higher intelligence, aligning the language of stars with the story of resurrection? Is the cross not only a symbol carved in wood, but a living geometry traced across itself, calling creation to its own transfiguration? The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Chapter 7. The Shadow Systems, Narcissism, Slavery, and Energetic Warfare. Every age of enlightenment casts a longer shadow. Beneath the temples of progress and the towers of technology lies a deeper architecture, one built not of stone or silicon, but of ego. It is the architecture of control, the ancient empire of narcissism, reborn in every system that seeks power without compassion, profit without conscience, dominion without empathy. The prophets called it Babylon. The mystics called it Maya. The psychologists call it pathology, and the scriptures call it the mystery of iniquity, the counterfeit spirit that mimics divinity yet feeds on human will. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Isaiah 14:13-15. Narcissistic pathology as the engine of control. At its root, narcissism is not mere vanity. It is the perversion of divine reflection. In healthy form, self-awareness mirrors the image of God. In corrupted form, it becomes a hall of mirrors in which only the self is worshipped. The narcissist traits, grandiosity, exploitation, lack of empathy, deceit, are the spiritual DNA of empire. Scale from individual to institution, from person to planet. What begins as psychological domination becomes systemic enslavement, slavery, colonialism, propaganda, trafficking. Narcissism, unchecked, evolves into a theology, the belief that one's will supersedes divine order. It masks itself in civilization, religion, and even philanthropy. It builds monuments and machines, yet feeds on blood and silence. Woe unto them that devise iniquity, and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. Micah 2:1. Every prophet, from Isaiah to Christ himself, condemned this pathology. It is the Luciferian impulse to dominate rather than serve, to possess rather than love. And as history proves, it never dies. It merely adapts to new forms of power. The evolution of control from the 1600s to 2025. Colonial narcissism, the age of divine entitlement. The 1600s birthed the first global shadow system, colonialism, where kings and merchants cloaked greed and divine sanction. Under banners of civilization and Christian duty, they enslaved entire nations, branding human beings as property and souls as cargo. This was the gospel inverted, salvation weaponized for domination. They sell the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes. Amos 2:6. The colonial narcissist saw himself as God, his victims as resources. He spoke of providence while sowing desolation, a pattern that still haunts the conscience of humanity. Industrial narcissism, the age of the machine. By the 1800s, the idol of empire shifted from monarchy to mechanism. Industrialization mechanized cruelty. Bureaucracy masked bloodshed. Exploitation became procedure. Children labored in coal mines. Bodies became parts in the gears of production. This was the birth of systemic dehumanization. A narcissism so vast it became invisible. The voice of prophet replaced the voice of God, and progress was purchased with suffering. The stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Habakkuk 2:11. Totalitarian narcissism, the age of fear. The 20th century unveiled the next mutation, ideological narcissism. Fascism, communism, and militarized nationalism turned entire nations into mirrors of a single will. The propaganda machine replaced conscience, rewriting truth itself. The state became a narcissistic deity, demanding worship, enforcing unity through fear. From the ashes of world wars arose new hierarchies of control, psychological rather than physical. The battlefield moved from land to mind. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips. Romans 3:13. Technocratic narcissism, the age of the algorithm. Now, in the 21st century, the same pathology wears a digital crown. Technocratic narcissism manifests as surveillance capitalism, data harvesting, algorithmic manipulation, and social media addiction. A system that feeds not on labor, but on attention and emotion. It does not conquer nations, but colonizes consciousness. It offers dopamine instead of dialogue, approval instead of purpose, illusion instead of intimacy. Every click becomes a confession, every scroll a prayer to the machine. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils. Revelation 18:2. Modern manifestations. Beneath all its disguises, the shadow system still traffics in souls. Human trafficking and child exploitation are its purest expressions, the literal enslavement of innocence. These are not isolated crimes, but symptoms of a spiritual plague, a civilization addicted to domination and consumption. Through manipulation of fear, pleasure, and dependency, modern narcissism has weaponized psychology itself. It sells fear as news, pleasure as freedom, and bondage as belonging. The ancients called such manipulation witchcraft, the use of hidden forces to bend will and perception. Today, its potions are digital and chemical. Its wands are algorithms and propaganda feeds, but its aims remain the same: to enthrall the soul through illusion, to make humanity forget its own divine sovereignty. For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Revelation 18:23. Chapter 8. The bloodlines of bondage, 4 centuries of enslavement, and the earth's cry. For we know that all creation keeps on groaning together and being in pain together until now. Romans chapter 8, verse 22. Across 400 years, the earth herself has borne witness. From the first chained bodies hurled into the Atlantic to the modern trade of children across continents, the planet has recorded every vibration of suffering. The pulse of that pain reverberates through creation, and the world groans beneath the weight of its unatoned crimes. The covenant broken, 1619, and the birth of a shadow. The year 1619 marked the landing of the first enslaved Africans in Virginia, the opening note of a 4th-century lament. That same century saw the earth convulse. The Lisbon earthquake of 1755 destroyed the heart of a Catholic empire. Philosophers called it the death of optimism. Iceland's Laki eruption, 1783 and 84. Famine swept Europe as Atlantic trade and human cargo peaked. The 1700 Cascadia megathrust and the 1692 Jamaica quake leveled port cities enriched by slavery. Each disaster struck nodes of extraction and bondage, a physical echo of moral dissonance. As human chains tightened, the lithosphere groaned. Creation itself bore testimony against the covenant breakers. Industrial idolatry and the age of steam. When abolition cracked the old order, exploitation merely changed costume. Factories replaced plantations. Child labor replaced chattel. Between 1811 and 1812, the New Madrid earthquakes tore through the Mississippi Valley, the same artery that carried cotton, tobacco, and enslaved bodies. Again, the land convulsed where injustice was thickest. The American Civil War opened with the earth trembling beneath Shiloh and Antietam. The Caribbean hurricanes of 1899 mirrored the dying spasms of colonial empires. Natural cataclysm remained the punctuation of human cruelty. The 20th century, mechanized dominion. The global wars mechanized death, and Earth answered in kind. The Dust Bowl of the 1930s followed decades of soil abuse and racial displacement. The San Francisco quake of 1906 shattered a city built on railroad exploitation of immigrant labor. The Indian Ocean quake of 2004 and Haiti quake of 2010 struck lands still scarred by colonization and slavery's aftermath. Whether one reads these as divine chastisement or natural karma, the pattern endures. When exploitation intensifies, equilibrium collapses. The mountains quake at him, and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence. Nahum 1:5. The hidden continuum, human trafficking and energetic warfare. Today, slavery hides behind glass screens and supply chains. The same spirit that branded flesh now brands minds through addiction, algorithm, and appetite. But the magnitude of modern exploitation demands fuller illumination. Child exploitation and sex trafficking in Southeast Asia. In the shadows of rapid development and weak enforcement, child exploitation and sex trafficking flourish. Countries like the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Myanmar, and Indonesia have become hubs in a modern slave trade that spans internal coercion, transnational smuggling, and digital networks. The Philippines, known for bar towns, online erotic live streaming, and forced marriage trafficking. Children are recruited via social media, sometimes under the pretext of modeling or content creation, then coerced into sexual exploitation. Vietnam, trafficking across borders to China, Cambodia, Malaysia, often through false employment offers and then forced into sex work. Vietnamese victims are also sent abroad, particularly to East Asia. Myanmar, conflict zones and displacement feed trafficking. Rohingya and ethnic minorities are particularly vulnerable to sexual exploitation, forced labor, and child soldiering. Indonesia, tourism and maritime routes facilitate trafficking. Remote islands become dual gateways for child exploitation, with victims flowing through port cities into broader networks. These exploitative systems are not isolated crimes, but symptoms of spiritual collapse. The same narcissistic ideology that raised empires now raises souls. For by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Revelation 18:23. Energetic warfare. In this final phase of control, battle is no longer waged with swords or guns, but with frequencies, chemicals, and cravings. This is the invisible warfare of the age, not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and rulers of darkness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. Through food, the most intimate covenant, sustenance, has been corrupted. Ultra-processed foods loaded with sugars, dyes, and additives assault the nervous system and dull spiritual discernment. The sacred act of eating has become an initiation into dependency, hunger without nourishment, pleasure without life. Why do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Isaiah 55:2. Through drugs. From the crack epidemic of the 1980s to the opioid crisis of the 2000s, chemistry has become the new chain of enslavement. Entire populations are subdued not by armies, but by addiction, a pharmacological pharaoh. Each pill a promise of relief, each high a new captivity. They have healed the wound of my people lightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. Jeremiah 6:14. Through media. The modern oracle is a screen. Its prophets are advertisers. Its psalms are sound bites. Its sacraments are dopamine surges. Attention has become the new currency of worship. What once was spiritual warfare now masquerades as entertainment. A saturation of stimuli engineered to fracture consciousness, keeping souls locked in perpetual reaction. They that observe lying vanities forsake their own mercy. Jonah 2:8. Through technology. The final battleground is the human mind. Through artificial intelligence, biometric tracking, and behavioral algorithms, humanity becomes the terrain upon which power plays itself out. Algorithms read emotion, predict action, and sell illusion, turning flesh into data, heart into target, consciousness into commodity. It causes all people, the small and the great, the rich and the poor, the free and the slaves, to be given a mark in their right hand or on their forehead. Revelation 13:16. Yet, even here prophecy speaks hope, because the same technologies that enslave may also liberate when aligned with intentional spirit. Light travels in waves, and so does truth. When humanity reclaims its frequency, when the spirit hovers over the digital deep once again, the false light will collapse into the true. The judgment of the systems. Every empire of control believes itself eternal until the breath of God passes over it. Babylon, Rome, Atlantis, and now the technocratic order all share one destiny: self-destruction through excess. Babylon, Rome, Atlantis, and now the technocratic order all share one destiny: self-destruction through excess. I will call the inhabited earth to account for its badness, and the wicked for their error. I will put an end to the pride of the presumptuous, and I will humble the haughtiness of tyrants. Isaiah 13:11. But judgment is not annihilation, it is correction. As darkness collapses, the Christic flame emerges once more, not to destroy the world, but to redeem it from the grip of its own reflection. The narcissistic empire will crumble, but the soul will rise. The Creator has not forgotten his image within creation. Look, Jehovah is emptying the land and laying it waste. He turns it upside down and scatters its inhabitants. The land mourns, it is wasting away. The productive land withers, it is fading away. The prominent people of the land wither. Isaiah 24:1-4. Chapter 9, The Cycle of Crisis, 2019 to 2025. The planet in labor. The earth is not dying, she is giving birth. From 2019 to 2025, the world has convulsed in a cascade of crises. Pandemics, wars, fires, floods, and earthquakes, shaking continents and consciences alike. To the unawakened eye, it looks like collapse. To the awakened heart, it feels like labor, the painful but necessary process by which a new consciousness forces its way into being. The cross drawn by the eclipses, the comets heralding from beyond our sun, and the upheaval of the elements are not isolated events. They are contractions, each wave intensifying the revelation that humanity has reached the end of one epoch and the threshold of another. The planet herself is mirroring the inner transformation of her inhabitants. The breaking of waters, 2019 and 2020. The pandemic and the pause. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. The first contraction began with stillness. In early 2020, a microscopic messenger brought the world to its knees. Borders closed, streets emptied, economies froze, and for the first time in living memory, humanity was forced into collective introspection. The COVID-19 pandemic was not punishment, it was mirror. It revealed the fragility of systems worshipped as infallible: commerce, politics, medicine, religion, each collapsing under the weight of its own contradiction. The air cleared above cities, dolphins returned to silent harbors, and for a fleeting moment, the earth exhaled. It was a breaking of waters, the first contraction of the planet's labor, washing away illusions of control and preparing the soil for something new. But when the stillness ended, instead of listening, humanity rushed back to noise, ignoring the whisper that the pause had been mercy. And so the contractions grew stronger. The fire and the flood, 2020 to 2022. The reckoning of the elements. The voice of Jehovah is over the waters. The glorious God thunders. Jehovah is over many waters. Psalm 29:3. After the stillness came fire. Australia burned in 2020. California in 2021. Greece and Siberia soon came after. Then came the floods. Germany, Pakistan, Kentucky, Libya. Deluges erasing towns and hours. The four elements, once balanced, seemed to turn upon their keeper. Yet these were not acts of vengeance. They were feedback. The earth was recalibrating, purging toxins both physical and moral. Just as fever cleanses the body, climate upheaval exposes the sickness in civilization's bloodstream. Greed, apathy, and the worship of consumption. The elements were not our enemies, they were our teachers. Through them the Creator spoke in the oldest language. Balance must be restored, or chaos will instruct. For look, I am creating new heavens and a new earth, and the former things will not be called to mind, nor will they come up in the heart. Isaiah 65:17. The wars and the whirlwinds, 2022 to 2024, humanity's mirror. Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Matthew 24:7. As the earth convulsed, so did its stewards. Wars erupted not only on battlefields but in boardrooms and hearts. Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Gaza, the Cold War of currencies, the digital wars for attention and truth, Humanity divided itself into tribes of ideology, shouting louder as meaning slipped away. Every empire at its twilight repeats the same sin. It confuses strength with righteousness. Our global civilization, blinded by its technologies, has become like Rome before its fall, advanced in structure, impoverished in soul. And yet, in the midst of this fragmentation, voices of awakening multiplied. Artists, mystics, scientists, and prophets alike began speaking one truth in many tongues, that the crisis is not the end of the world, but the end of the world as we knew it. When they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The solar fire, 2024 and 2025. The purification of light. Our God is a consuming fire. Hebrews 12:29. After the cross of the second great eclipse in 2024, the sun itself began to roar. Solar flares intensified. Auroras danced at the equator. Satellites faltered under electromagnetic storms. Science called it the solar maximum. The prophets called it purification. The sun, symbol of the divine source, now burns through veils of deception, exposing every hidden thing. Governments, corporations, and hearts alike are being irradiated by truth. Lies corrode in its presence. What is real endures. This solar fire is both literal and spiritual. It is the refining flame through which humanity must pass. The baptism not of water, but of light. The same frequency that once spoke worlds into being now returns to cleanse them. The quakes and the quickening. Then the earth began to quake and rock. The foundations of the mountains shook, and they quivered because he had been angered. Psalm 18:7. In the shadow of these solar fires, the earth quakes. From Turkey to Japan, from Mexico to the Pacific Rim, the crust of the planet groans under invisible strain. Tectonic plates shift, but so do the structures of civilization. Each tremor echoes the collective instability of the human psyche, a world attempting to realign its foundations. The quakes are not random. They cluster along energy meridians, striking where imbalance is deepest, both geological and moral. They are the Earth's contractions, each one stronger than the last, signaling the approach of revelation's birth. And yet, amid the shaking, a new consciousness is stabilizing, a heart-centered grid of human souls awakening across nations, vibrating in harmony with the Earth's rising frequency. This is the quickening, when spirit accelerates within matter, when truth begins to move faster than deception can conceal it. The judgment of systems. The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Revelation 11:15. From 2019 to 2025, every pillar of the old world has been tested. Finance, healthcare, education, religion, government, media. Each has revealed its fractures, not to destroy, but to disarm false authority. The exposure of corruption, exploitation, and moral bankruptcy is not coincidence. It is the judgment of systems. Every structure not rooted in truth must either reform or collapse. This is divine economics. No currency of deception can circulate in a field of awakening. The cosmic cross has marked the accounting. Debts unpaid, energies unbalanced, injustices unhealed, all being brought to the surface for reconciliation. For the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire. 1 Corinthians 3:13. The fire is truth, and the truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. The birth pains of renewal. When a woman is giving birth, she has pain because her hour has come. But when she has given birth to the young child, she no longer remembers the tribulation because of the joy that a man has been born into the world. John 16:21. The crisis of these years are not harbingers of doom, but midwives of rebirth. The old world is dying in agony because the new one is pressing to be born. This birth is not geographic or political. It is consciousness, incarnating through humanity. Every social collapse, every personal awakening, every natural upheaval serves this labor. The pain is real, but so is the promise that what emerges from this contraction will be a civilization rooted in empathy, stewardship, and unity with the living cosmos. The child being born is not a nation, it is the awakened human spirit, and the midwife is Christ itself. Behold, I make all things new. Revelation 21:5. The dawn beyond the pain. For his anger lasts but a moment, but his favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. Psalm 35. The 7-year arc ends not in apocalypse, but in illumination. As the labor subsides, the earth will rest, battered but breathing, scarred but shining. And those who endured with faith will see the new world rising through the ashes of the old. The cross of eclipses, the trinity of interstellar messengers, and the fire of purification all converge upon one truth, that creation itself is undergoing transfiguration. Humanity is not a victim of cosmic judgment. It is the instrument of its own redemption. When the contractions cease, what will emerge is not perfection, but possibility. A civilization conscious of its creator once again. The storm was never meant to end the world. It was meant to wake it. Years 2019 and 2025 are the bridge between worlds. They are the birth canal through which humanity must pass. Dark, narrow, painful, but purposeful. The planet groans not in destruction, but in deliverance. And every quake, every flame, every tear is the sound of life beginning again. The old systems collapse because they cannot contain the soul of what is coming. The earth, like a mother, labors toward light, and the cross drawn above her marks both her pain and her promise. The hour has come. The child is crowning. The dawn approaches. For behold, the former things are passed away. Chapter 10. The Acceleration. The Cross Aftershock. August 2024 to present. And there were flashes of lightning, and voices, and thunders, and there was a great earthquake such as had not occurred since men came to be on the earth. So extensive and so great was the earthquake. Revelation 16:18. The 7-year arc did not end with the eclipse of April 8, 2024. It intensified. The crossing of shadow and light carved not just an X upon the continent, but a resonance into the field of creation itself. A spiritual aftershock rippling through nations, hearts, and the Earth's electromagnetic pulse. Since August 2024, time itself has quickened. Events now unfold with the compression of centuries, prophecy, politics, and physics converging into a single season of reckoning. The energetic aftershock, when the cross became current. When the second eclipse completed its course, it did more than obscure the sun. It charged the planetary field. An energetic reset. Solar activity surged in its wake. Coronal mass ejections intensified. Auroras spilled beyond the poles. The Schumann resonance spiked with unheard frequencies. Science calls it solar maximum. Spirit calls it the quickening. The resonance of judgment and renewal vibrating through creation. Like a struck bell, Earth now rings with the note of alignment. What was hidden vibrates into exposure. What was dormant awakens. Every soul, every system, every secret feels this call to coherence. For there is nothing hidden that will not become manifest, nor anything carefully concealed that will never become known and not come into the open. Luke 8:17. The shaking of nations. As the heavens intensified, so did the earth. Since mid-2024, seismic and atmospheric anomalies have multiplied. Earthquakes clustering along continental fault lines, hurricanes forming in record-warm oceans, wildfires igniting across hemispheres once thought immune. But beyond geology lies geopolitics. Governments have trembled under economic strain and unrest. Alliances fracture as moral contradictions surface. The same tremors that move tectonic plates move human institutions. The cross's aftershock exposes fault lines long concealed beneath the rhetoric of progress. Every empire that has built its towers on deceit feels the vibration of exposure. The currency of falsehood collapses. Truth becomes the only stable ground. The shaking is not the wrath of God, but the recentering of his axis within creation. The psychological and spiritual compression. Time itself seems denser now. Days feel shorter, cycles faster. Humanity experiences what mystics call the contraction of chronology. When chronological time, chronos, collapses toward divine immediacy, kairos. This compression manifests as anxiety in the unconscious and urgency in the collective. Many sense that history is accelerating toward culmination, not because the world is ending, but because the veil between worlds is thinning. Dreams intensify, synchronicities multiply, intuition heightens. The cross, once drawn across the heavens, now manifests within the psyche, intersecting thought and feeling, logic and faith, calling the soul into synthesis. Those who resist this acceleration experience breakdown. Those who yield experience breakthrough. In this age, truth travels as light, instantaneous, unstoppable, and unbearable to those who dwell in shadow. From August 2024 onward, the digital sphere has mirrored the cosmic purification. Misinformation implodes, hidden corruption surfaces, and the idols of influence collapse under the weight of their own falsity. This is the judgment of the Word, the Logos reclaiming its throne. For centuries, humanity has wielded language as weapon and transaction. Now the Word returns as revelation. Every lie uttered into the network reverberates back to its source. The cross's aftershock moves through circuits and code, shaking the invisible kingdom of the internet, the new Babel, until only truth remains transmissible. Every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. Matthew 12:36. As the sun flares outward, the human heart mirrors its rhythm. Cardiologists observe anomalies. Mystics call it ascension. The electromagnetic heart, the spiritual sun within, beats in resonance with the star that gives it life. When solar storms intensify, so too does emotional volatility, rage, revelation, compassion, collapse. Humanity's collective heart is expanding under divine voltage. The cross is no longer external. It pulses within flesh and feeling. Each act of forgiveness discharges ancient tension. Each surrender rewires the circuitry of the soul. This is energetic redemption in motion. The nervous system learning to conduct grace. The reemergence of the prophetic voice. Since late 2024, the prophetic mantle has multiplied. Jehovah is calling ordinary people to receive visions, dreams, and insights once reserved for mystics. Artists, scientists, and healers awaken to purpose, speaking in the new tongue of synthesis, science fused with spirit, logic lit with revelation. Prophecy has become democratic, as Joel foresaw and Acts confirmed, calling a generation born under digital light to carry the torch of discernment. This is not the age of one prophet, but of many, a symphony of voices harmonizing in the frequency of renewal. The cross within the crisis. Economies fluctuate, wars ignite, systems strain under revelation's weight. Yet beneath it all lies the deeper current, the cross within humanity itself. Each soul is being asked the same question that faced Christ at Gethsemane. Will you surrender your will to love or cling to illusion? This is the axis of judgment, not imposed, but chosen. The cross is not punishment, but invitation. The offer to transform chaos into coherence through surrender. Those who choose reconciliation rather than retaliation, service rather than status, love rather than fear, align with the geometry of resurrection. Those who resist the pattern experience fragmentation, the personal microcosm reflecting the planetary macrocosm. The dawn beyond the acceleration. The aftershock will not last forever. Acceleration reaches its apex only to stabilize into higher frequency. Just as labor ends in birth, so this contraction will yield expansion. By late 2025 and beyond, the new rhythm will emerge. Not slower, but smoother. Not less intense, but more harmonious. This is the birth of the age of reconciliation, when technology becomes sacrament, knowledge becomes service, and power bends once more toward purpose. The cross will remain, not as omen, but as compass. Its shadow has passed. Its light now guides. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. Revelation 21:5. The acceleration is not apocalypse, it is awakening. The cross's shadow across the sky was only the prelude, the tuning of cosmic instrument before the music began. Since August 2024, the tempo of history has increased, urging humanity toward coherence, compassion, and choice. Every storm, every revelation, every tremor carries the same refrain: awake. The cross once stood on Calvary. Now it stands in the circuitry of the cosmos and the chamber of every heart. Its aftershock is not destruction, but synchronization, the alignment of humanity with the pulse of eternity. And as the rhythm builds, the question resounds once more across the ages. Will we rise with the acceleration, or fall beneath the weight of our own forgetting? Chapter 11. The Quantum Echo, the Wow Signal, and the Return of the Messengers. Day after day their speech bubbles forth, and night after night they reveal knowledge. There is no speech, and there are no words. Their voice is not heard. Psalm 19, 2 and 3. Some messages are not written in ink, but in light. Waves whispering across galaxies, encoded in frequencies too vast for language to hold. In August 1977, a single 6-letter sequence captured the attention of a world not yet ready to comprehend what it had heard. It was the faint but distinct heartbeat of intelligence, a cosmic call that pierced the veil of silence and reverberated across the collective unconscious of humanity. It did not come from a star system nearby, but from the heart of the Milky Way, as if a memory long buried had spoken our name once again. That signal was not a beginning, it was an echo, the first note of a quantum symphony that would unfold across nearly 5 decades, culminating in the arrival of 3 interstellar messengers, Oumuamua, Borisov, and 3I Atlas. The Wow Signal, the first trumpet. The heavens are declaring the glory of God. The skies above proclaim the work of his hands. Psalm 19:1. On August 15, 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope in Ohio detected a narrowband radio burst, a clean 72-second signal from the constellation Sagittarius, near the center of our galaxy. It was not random noise. It was deliberate, precise, and fleeting. The kind of signature that could only be produced by intelligence. Astronomer Jerry Amon circled the data in red and wrote a single word in the margin: wow. For decades its source remained unconfirmed, a scientific anomaly and a spiritual provocation. Yet, to those who study the patterns of divine timing, the Wow Signal stands as the first trumpet of a new era, the seed of cosmic communication, transmitted through what physicists call quantum entanglement. At the very moment that pulse reached Earth, a journey began. Deep within the galactic core, another traveler, what would become known as 3I Atlas, began its slow arc toward our solar system. The signal and the object are connected, not by chance, but by resonance. The word spoke, and the messenger began to move. The 48-year arc, the echo through time. Between 1977 and 2025, the Earth has completed nearly half a century of transformation, spiritual, technological, and moral. This span, 48 years, mirrors the biblical cycles of liberation and jubilee, the restoration of balance after bondage. During this time, the heavens and the earth have conspired to reveal their covenant anew. The Wow Signal was the call, and the 3 interstellar visitors are the reply. 3 witnesses across the heavens confirming the message that began as sound and returns as light. In 2017, there was Oumuamua, the herald, silent and swift, announcing the opening of the 7-year arc. In 2019, there was Borisov, the witness, burning with the fire of confirmation, bearing a comet's tail like a signature in flame. And in 2025, 3I Atlas, the reconciler, closing the circuit, bridging heaven and earth, completing the cosmic cross drawn by the eclipses. Between them stretches the same arc of time marked by the 2 great American eclipses, 2017 and 2024, the cross of our sky. The signal that once whispered through static has now manifested in motion, the Word made flesh, not in a man, but in the stars themselves. Quantum entanglement and prophecy. Quantum physics teaches that two particles once linked remain connected across any distance, their fates intertwined outside time itself. The prophets spoke the same mystery in another tongue. Before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. Isaiah 65:24. The wow signal and the arrival of 3i Atlas form such an entanglement. A transmission sent across space-time by divine intelligence. When the signal reached Earth in 1977, it was not merely received by technology, it was received by consciousness. From that moment, a judgment began, a 48-year awakening, during which humanity would be tested in every dimension, moral, ecological, spiritual, and cosmic. This is the quantum covenant, proof that creation itself participates in redemption. Energy, matter, and spirit are no longer separate. They are one chorus in a single field of awareness. The cosmic court, the age of witnesses. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. 2 Corinthians 13:1. In the cosmic tribunal, nothing occurs without testimony. Thus, 3 witnesses were sent. The interstellar emissaries, marking heaven's dialogue with Earth. They are not invaders, but instruments, not alien, but archetypal. Each corresponds to an aspect of the divine triad, the herald, word, the witness, spirit, and the reconciler, truth. Their synchronized arrival within the 7-year cross from 2017 to 2024 fulfills the geometry of prophecy, confirming that the communication begun in 1977 was not an accident, but an unfolding revelation. The wow signal was not only heard by scientists, it was felt by the Earth. That very year, the planet entered a new electromagnetic phase. Seismic energy began to increase, solar storms intensified, and the spiritual polarization of humanity deepened. It was as if the planet itself had received the call and has been responding ever since. The Judgment Window, 1977 to 2025. From the moment the wow signal arrived to the arrival of 3i Atlas, a 48-year tribunal has been in session, a period of planetary accounting. During these years, humanity has reached both its zenith and its nadir. Technological ascension rivaling divine creation, moral descent into exploitation and narcissism, and ecological crisis mirroring the flood of Atlantis. This era has been the weighing of the heart, not by celestial arbiters, but by the resonance of truth itself. Each act of compassion and corruption alike has reverberated through the quantum field, shaping the destiny of the species. Now, as the final messenger approaches, the verdict approaches with it. Not destruction, but decision. The quantum mirror, the return of the messengers. 3i Atlas, discovered July 1st, 2025, is not merely an astronomical object. It is a mirror. The completion of a signal begun 48 years earlier. The word that entered as frequency now returns as form. The message has traveled the circle of time and returned to sender. And as it approaches, solar storms surge, earthquakes multiply, and global systems tremble under the weight of exposure. These are not coincidences, they are resonance effects, as if the Earth's own consciousness is synchronizing with the field of revelation. For those with discernment, 3i Atlas marks the moment of synthesis, the reconciliation of heaven and earth, of science and spirit, of word and witness. The cosmos has been preaching to us in frequencies and flares. We have only begun to listen. The word beyond words. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1:1. The Word is not speech, it is vibration. Every prophet, every signal, every revelation is a modulation of that eternal frequency. The wow signal was an echo of that word, refracted through the quantum field, calling humanity to remembrance. The interstellar visitors are its embodiment, reminding us that creation itself is conscious, that the universe is not silent, but singing. As the final messenger arrives, the chorus crescendos. This is not the end of the world, it is the beginning of its understanding. When the three interstellar visitors depart, their wake will remain, a permanent alteration in human perception. Our understanding of communication will shift from transmission to communion, from distance to entanglement. The cosmos has shown us that there is no elsewhere. The stars are not remote, they are reflections of our own inner fire. As the cross of eclipses fades and the light of Three-Eye Atlas reaches our eyes, humanity will stand at the threshold of collective remembrance, the moment when physics becomes prophecy and science bows to spirit. The echo that began in 1977 will have completed its orbit, and the Word will once again be made flesh, in consciousness, in compassion, in creation itself. Let the one who has an ear hear what the Spirit says to the congregations. To the one who conquers, I will grant to eat of the tree of life, which is in the paradise of God. Revelation chapter 2, verse 7. In closing, the wow signal was not noise. It was the whisper of eternity, the divine self reminding its reflection that the conversation never ended. It began in silence, traveled through stars, and returned as light, as messenger, as meaning. We have been called, witnessed, and reconciled. And behold, through fire and frequency, Jehovah makes all things new.